Hello, peoples. Welcome to the Stoked Bloke Show. I'm Barton Lynch. I am the Stoked Bloke, and today's show is coming to you from the Pipeline Studios, a courtesy of a New Earth project and their S3 surfboard shipping system, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Today's guest is a true legend of the sport of surfing, a true waterman, someone I've looked up to for a very, very long time. Uncle Jock Sutherland, welcome him to the Stoked Bloke Show.
Hey, Barton, thank you very much, sir.
Jock, it is my absolute pleasure, mate, from the bottom of my heart to get to spend the time with you and to have watched you over the past. You know, I came first to Hawaii in 1980, so we're talking 45. Has been such an inspiration, mate.
So maybe the first time I think I saw you at Jocko's was when you were going over the falls when you made too late of a takeoff. Huh? You kind of remember that a little bit?
Barton, okay, buddy? You all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Uncle Jock, I've seen you in some incredible situations, a few that I want to share a little bit later. You first moved to Hawaii. You were born in Long Beach, California?
Right, in 1948, yeah.
1948?
Yeah.
So that would make you 78 years young this year.
Yes. In a couple of months, it'll be 78. Right now, I'm
What's the birthday?
September 27th.
September 27th.
Yeah, you're right when the surf starts.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, you're there.
In the old days, first week or two of September, we'd be getting on the bus and we'd be looking out in the surf would be coming up and we'd be going, oh no,
Gotta go to school.
gotta go to school. Yeah. But we were, you know, most of us were observant or cognizant of our parents' wishes, and we realized that education was a good thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes kids nowadays, not so much.
No, it's not as appreciated as it used to be, and maybe the system's being utilised by corporations and people invested in it for money rather than the pure interest in helping a young child develop, like the old days.
Yeah, and sometimes the young kids to have the wrong ideas about how education can help them out later on in life.
Or don't even think that far ahead.
Yeah, don't want to because they got television in their phones.
Exactly.
And I have to commend your country for having been one of the first to tell all the young people
Kids.
and the parents, look, you know, these cell phones, they're really not helping us out here. We're going to have to curtail them, you know, to the point where until you're 17 or 18 years old, we don't want you to have them.
Yeah.
And the kids, of course, but after a month or two, the teachers are saying, oh, I can hear laughter. I can hear the kids talking to each other.
You're already having impact.
And here in the United States, too, they're doing the same thing and with the same results.
Yeah. You grew up in a completely different time as a child. How was moving to Hawaii, you know, as a young man in the mid-50s?
Well, I wasn't a young man yet. I was only like
You were a boy, huh?
5 years old. Yeah. Just a little shrimp and barely able to swim, you know, very well, but my mom was a swimming teacher, Red Cross certified. She got that in California. She was a lifeguard there, but here in Haleiwa, where we moved in 1954 for a couple of years, and then we went away for about 3 or 4 years, and because she had a job at a naval air base over on the west side, Barbers Point, Eva Beach area, and after that we came back, and I went to high school out here, and that was when the surfing involvement became thicker because the boards were getting better. I used to have a board that was like a Pipo board. It didn't have any rocker at all, just all belly that my dad had added a little tail rock section on, so it was maybe 7 feet long. Very hard to ride, but if you start off on a board that's hard to ride, and then you get on something that's easier, then, you know, you go, oh, wow. And so you start to progress. But back in the old days, it was pretty tough. But having grown up out here and getting to know the people out here was a great boon to my sense of self-worth as well as a sense of humility, you know, about what can be done and what ought to be done.
Right. Tell us a little bit more about that engagement, that interaction with local people. Yeah. How was that back in those days?
Well, in elementary school, you know, everybody's kind of your friend except for, you know, a little bit of minor pickiness, there's no real prejudice because you're all trying to learn, and, you know, they had sleeping bags for you. You're supposed to take a nap during a certain part of the day, but then when I came back to high school, things were a little tougher because the preconception was that Caucasian people were going to look down our noses at the local people because they were of a different culture, and the idea was that they were not as appreciable, they were not as valuable as friends or members that you should get to know in the community, which was not the way I was raised, thank goodness. Right. And so, but my classmates didn't know that. They thought, okay, here's a haole boy, and we're going to pick on him,
Yeah.
But because I was in a judo class when I was in the 8th grade or so, and because I had already started surfing for a little bit, that it didn't really take a negative hold of me, because I realized where they were coming from, and I empathize with them, so to speak. Yeah. And so we got along after, a couple of tussles here and there, but, nothing serious. Nothing serious.
And it's sort of inherited, isn't it, that attitude? It's not really the attitude of a child.
No, kids are innocent in general, but earlier and earlier they're learning how to, because kids can be mean to each other. They see it. They see the parents or their older brothers and sisters sniping at each other, and using the social media to post negative things because they think that's going to enhance their status, with their peer group, and it's wrong. Yeah,
we've seen some gnarly things happen here on the North Shore in most recent times.
Yeah, like a day or two even.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they'll figure out. But it's too bad that the draw is there so much that, well, like positivity can be a great magnet, but so can negativity.
Exactly.
So you just have to be able to have some filters, some anticipation about what might go wrong when you're in a situation where things can get blown out of proportion. Just a wrong word, in the wrong place, as opposed to the right word, a compliment. Just taking somebody aside and saying, "Hey, here's some tools that you could use," and recognizing the need and being able to instill in the kids that sense of ability. Yeah,
a sense of self, and that there's value and worth in trying to make more of your opportunities. Obviously, you received some wonderful direction, some wonderful encouragement from your parents.
Yeah, not so much my dad, because he was out to sea, but my mom, and also the surfers that were from slightly after my dad's era, like Buzzy Trent and Jose Angel, Fred Van Dyke, Peter Cole, Flippy Hoffman, people like that. They would take me under their wing, and show me, hey, here's a lineup, or take off with me, and so that was invaluable. I knew it was valuable then, but it's proved to be even more so later on, and I'm really happy that I'm able to pass on those lessons now, to people that might want to listen to what I have to say, which I try to not burnish it so much, but I try to get it to be understandable and applicable to their own lives, instead of having something that's distant or seems irrelevant to their lives. I try to make it like, say, I tell them, hey, surfing can be good for your education. Surfing will help you. You just have to make sure that the book learning doesn't get too far on the wrong side of the scale.
But those lessons in the ocean are so similar to the lessons you were just describing as well. One wrong paddle, one wrong move, and you can find yourself in a serious situation.
Yeah, like a fellow that I met at the stretching class, the foundation class that Kahea Hart helps run over here at the elementary school. He was from the Big Island, and he's a turmeric farmer, and he produces like 20,000 pounds of turmeric, which they call olena in Hawaiian, and it's a very good anti-inflammatory. Mm-hmm. So he's got an olena elixir, a turmeric drink, like a turmeric latte, if you will. Right. And really, I can notice that it's helped, the resilience, the flexibility, the lessening of the stiffness in my own knees and shoulders. And so I want to get some more for Gavin, who's going through the same thing, because he's not only been doing aerials and pretty radical surfing, but also he has a tendency to, when he's roofing pushing a little bit too hard, carrying too much.
Right.
So all these things that I've learned. But this guy, his name is Anthony Palazzolo, and great guy. But he told me about being out at Jocko's one day with too small of a board. When there was a rip, and he broke his leash, and his board's gone, and he's almost like having to swim into Lani Akea, 200 yards.
Can't go against it. I got to go with it.
Yeah. But so that's the kind of thing that you hear about, and I'm on a mission kind of to tell people to not ride too small of a board.
Yeah.
Because if you got offshore wind, or if there's a rip, or if there's bigger sets coming, and you want to be able to get outside of them, and bigger boards are not going to make you sacrifice that much maneuverability. I go, if you need to get back on the tail a little bit, get back on it. You can, because I used to have a 10.5 that I was able to ride pipeline with, because it was an old Brewer, but from '66, because it had full rails, but they were low, and so you could actually ride 6-foot waves of pipeline with it.
The 10.5.
Yeah,
and get it over.
Yeah,
You could.
Well, because most guys back then could too.
Right.
Jimmy Lucas and Kiki Spangler and those guys Jeff Hackman.
Yeah.
Those guys that were all part of the peer group that I was part of. That we would be pushing each other, and try to find new things, like, say, with the old longboards, when you're taking off, say at Waimea or even Sunset, and you try to turn quickly, because the board is wider, the board would track and would have a tendency to because you're too far on the inside rail, and because you weren't centered, the board would split off from you.
Worst feeling.
And so you'd be skipping down the face of the wave, trying to get under the water, and your board's gone. And anyway, that was the old days, the long boards that were much harder to ride, and so the guys that were riding the bigger waves, like Greg Knoll and Peter and Fred and Jose Angel, I have to hand it to them. But I so appreciate their helping me learn what I did learn.
Yeah, and then boards start coming down, and you're a big part of that time in surfing, and the enhancements in design led to the improvements in performance.
Yeah. So you can get further and further back in the tube, and we learned that if you faded on a takeoff, like say at Sunset or Waimea, and it's very hard to get your mind to want to do that, because fading left on a takeoff, it's counterintuitive. But after a while, when you see if you take off and you're not centered, and you try to cut too quickly, if you try to turn too quickly, that you're not centered on your board. But if you fade it just a hair, just for a second or so, that you're over the center of it, and you can.
And then roll it over at the bottom into a turn.
You hope.
Yeah, you hope.
Anyways.
How were those early days of surfing the North Shore pre-leashes? That must have been a very different time.
Well, almost all the older guys were good divers, because they were poor, and they came over from California, on a shoestring budget, and so most of them were divers. So they had real good wind, and so it was easier to handle the wipeout. But and all surfers back then, I like to say, were body surfers, because if you lost your board, you wanted to find it as soon as possible. And we learned early on that, especially in a place like Sunset, where if you wiped out and pretty far out, that your board would be going out in the rip and you wouldn't be able to see it. And so you wouldn't want a green or a darker color board, because you wanted to be able to see it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get swim all the way into the beach, and guys are going, "No, your board's out there by Cammy Land."
Exactly.
Yeah. It was quite a time. It was a learning time, but it was an enjoyable time, because there was more fish then to be able to catch and bring home, because most of our families were pretty poor, and so almost all of us guys were either divers or fishermen or both.
I feel like, as an Australian, where hunting and fishing is kind of, in a lot of, obviously there's still people that love it, but from the main population, it's been sterilised out, and you go to the supermarket or whatever.
Yeah.
But here in Hawaii, there is a connection to hunting and fishing still that's very deep and a part rooted in the culture, which is what you're saying.
It is. It very much is. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who is a bus mechanic in town, his son works at Surf and Sea. His name is Hunter Sato, and turns out their family has got a lot of relatives down here in Haleiwa, but I did a repair for him yesterday, and this morning, because it rained pretty good, he said it wasn't leaking, and I brought him by a piece of fresh ahi that a friend of mine had cut up yesterday morning, and he gave me a bag full of venison backstraps.
Mate, let's go back to where your sense of adventure may have started from, because you've lived an adventurous life, mate, and you've ridden so many types of boards and in so many different ways over the years. Mum, she was the real deal.
She was. That's exactly the words that Dave Parmenter used to me.
Really?
About 10 years ago.
Right.
Your mum, she was a
real deal, mate. Tell us a little bit about Mum, Audrey, and her achievements. She wrote 3 books of her adventures.
Right, she did. She was an outdoors woman from the time she was a small girl, because her mom was an outdoors woman and had a cabin, mom and dad's cabin, grandma and granddad to me. Behind Los Angeles in the foothills of the Sierras, and so Mom was a tomboy, learned to climb trees, run around the mountains and stuff, and she learned to swim in a lake up there, and then she went to UCLA when she was 16 or so, but she was already a good reader, and so she was pretty smart, and she learned to swim a little bit more at UCLA in their pool there, and one of her good friends was named Tony Churchill, whose dad was the Churchill Finn guy.
That's what I was going to say, no way, really.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, in like 1935, 36, 37, Tony brought her a pair of fins and said, "Here, Audrey, try these out." And it might have been the first prototype for the Churchill Finn.
Churchill Finn's incredible.
And supposedly Mr. Churchill, took a design from Central American or Polynesian tribe. They made him out of a lauhala mat or something like that, and he paid them royalties from his fins because they were the guys that designed
Gave him the idea.
Yeah. But Mom always used to like her Churchill fins, but when we came over to Hawaii in '52, and she had 3 of us kids already, and so she wasn't able to do a lot of the things that she wanted to do from, the time she's 19, 20 years old. Once she met my dad and had kids, she had to watch over us kids. And so she had, once my brother was born, she had 4 kids, and she was pretty much tied down to us, but she'd also liked the mountains as well as the ocean. And so she would take one or a couple of us kids along on a hike at the same time. When we got old enough, 14, 15 years old, she flew by Molokai one time, and she looked and saw the wildness of the coast there. It was very, very isolated, very uncrowded. This is like in the early 60s. Mm-hmm. And so she said, "Well, that's where I want to go," but she didn't have much money. She didn't have hardly any money to be able to hire a boat. So she said, "Well, I guess I'll swim it." She got dropped off at 63 or 64 or so at the east end of the north coast there, east of Kalapapa and Molokai. The backside is almost all uncrowded, and especially the eastern half is big sea cliffs, some of the tallest sea cliffs in the world. And so she would swim, towing a pack, and camp out in the valleys along there. And after, 3 or 4 trips that way, she got a kayak, and so she started kayaking. But she was very self-sufficient and very innovative. She was not only intelligent, but she knew how to. She had the instinct to be able to look for shellfish, the old pihi or whatever. And she was also a good fisherman because she helped my dad, who was a commercial fisherman, for a couple of years, in his business, and they were making like $45 a month for like a family of 5.
So you bring a few fish home.
Yeah. So we learned how to fish when we were young, and learned how to eat a fish that had a lot of bones in it. Learn how to pick through the bones. And when I got into high school, Barton, it was a very big help for me to be able to go and catch some fish and bring them home, because otherwise it might be rice and beans for dinner. Yeah, we were poor like most families out here.
Yeah.
But Mom, when she started kayaking, she was able to go further distances and carry more stuff. And after about 5 or 6 years or so of kayaking Molokai, then she started kayaking up in Alaska.
That's what I saw. That's paddling north, right? The first book was paddling my own canoe.
Right.
Incredible. And then paddling Hawaii.
Right, that's like a how-to or where to go, and what kind of gear that you should take. And they're all three very good books.
Yeah, and then paddling north, which documented her 850-mile solo kayak journey through Alaska at the age of 60.
Right, but then she kept paddling for another 12 or 15 years, and she probably paddled about 8,000 miles in Southeast altogether. But mostly it was by herself in bear country, But she knew better than to. And she caught a couple of pretty good-sized fish, and then people would give her fish. People that were fishing on boats would say, "Hey, you will take your letters up to the next post office, but here you want a nice fish." And so she knew better than to clean fish around her camp, of course. But she was very happy at the end of those journeys, and she built quite a reputation, kind of like an Amelia Earhart, or a Marie Curie, kind of a scientific mind. Very, very smart woman, but very capable. And after, say, 15 or 20 years of paddling the kayak, she had very solid set of shoulders, and so in case any of us kids would start to get
step out of line.
I got the belt from her a couple of times because dad was not around, and I would tell my kids, her grandkids, Matt and Gavin, to hey, go give mom a neck rub over there, and they go over there and they put their hands on her shoulders. They go, "Oh wow, I know these shoulders," because they had a couple pair of themselves. But, she was quite a remarkable woman, and she has still as good a reputation, even though she's not around, as she used to have. And a lot of people will come up to me and say, "Oh, if it wasn't for your mom, I wouldn't have learned to swim." So give credit to her. And other people have said that they wanted to write a book about her. There's a movie about her, actually.
Oh yeah, what's that called?
It's called Molokai Solo.
Molokai Solo. Check that out.
Yeah, it's still around. It's rare to find, but so she has that good of a reputation that this because Patagonia took her first book after UH had published it first, and her manuscripts for her Alaska book, Paddling North, and they republished the first and third books, and we kids get royalties from Patagonia for those books.
Bravo.
Thank you, Mom.
There's
another one coming in,
Well, it would seem like there'd be a lot to thank Mum for as well.
Oh, yeah.
Your love of the ocean and your love of adventure.
Yeah, and the ability to see when you should, call it quits, or at least, recognize that you might be in too far over your head, and to be able to pull back.
Mum was well ahead of her time in that sense. The way she was not the way a traditional female's role was in the world at that time.
No, but in the entire Pacific Ocean, so many of the cultures in Polynesia, as well as Hawaii, the Maori culture, Australian outback women, New Zealand Kiwi women, these are all strong women because they had to be in case their man got hurt or went down or something. They were the next in line to be able to take care of everything, and they stepped up to it.
Yeah.
So it's a good, strong woman is something to be admired, and if they expect something from you, then you want to be able to be strong and be clear-minded and be capable to make them either admire you or fall in love with you.
Yeah, exactly. At least deliver. Now, Mum wrote, and this is amazing, and we'll go through it together if that's okay with you. This is what Audrey wrote. It's a list. It's called "What Every Kid Should Be Able to Do by the Age of 16."
Right.
And I love that. And she kind of wrote it with her boys in mind, right, or her kids in mind, like
all of us kids.
All of you kids,
all of us
male or
kids.
female, yeah. So first one was swim 400 yards easily.
Right,
Makes sense.
easily instead of struggling.
Not just swim it, but swim it easily.
Yeah.
do dishes in a strange house and your own.
Right, right.
That's about being comfortable and enough to assume responsibility.
Yes, I've even asked people, hey, can I help do the dishes? No, I want you to stay out of the kitchen. I'm like, no, we used to do them when we were kids. I'd like to do them. Please, please.
Yeah.
I'd browbeat them, to the point, okay, sure. You clear them and I'll do them, where's the towel, how do you do it? And most people appreciate it.
Yeah, that's right. Sense of respect and responsibility.
Yeah.
Cook a simple meal, 100%. See work to be done and do it.
That might be the biggest one there. It's basically initiative.
Initiative, exactly.
Yeah. And not look for credit for doing it.
Yeah.
But see something that needs to be done and do it without being asked.
Without being asked is the key, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. I tell that to my boy all the time. Care for tools and always put them away after use.
That's a hugie.
Oh, it's a hugie. My dad was a stickler. I copped it a couple of times for not putting stuff away. You learned that pretty quick, weren't you?
Yeah, because if it's not there where you need it and you need it in a hurry, or you've let it sit out in the rain and get rusted, and it doesn't work, and you've got to spend half an hour getting it back into shape so it is proper.
And they're intrinsically a part of your survival, the tools, right? Important.
Yeah, that's what I told Gavin. Your tools are your life. And he's going, no, they aren't. I go, well, they help you to get money, and they help you to get food. If you're talking about those kind of tools, and so they very much they appreciate. They don't look like they have a life of their own.
Yeah.
But they're like cars.
But they're life-giving if you need them, right?
Yeah, they are.
Splice or put a fixture on an electric cord.
That's
I felt inadequate when I read that. I went, I'm nowhere near doing that. But that's just simple electronics.
It's pretty
right?
simple. Yeah. Make sure your plug is not plugged in when you're trying to work with the raw wires, Simple stuff.
It's simple stuff, yep. Know basic information about 5 careers that suit you. So here she's suggesting that you create options for your future by having these 5 things that you know enough about to maybe be a career option?
Right, and she used to be an education counselor for the Army for years and years, decades. And she helped a lot of guys get college classes, night classes and stuff like that. But they also flew her around the Pacific Rim. They flew her to Japan and to Alaska. That's how she found out about Alaska, is because the Army, the recruiting command, the Army education people, flew her up to Alaska to talk to the guys there in college to let them know what the Army could do for them as far as education,
right.
if they would join up. But so it's a big call. I joined.
Yeah.
But I thought I knew enough about weaponry, but I was naive, because if it had come down to my having to kill somebody, that looked like my friends that I grew up with, it would have been a little tough. And so I was very lucky to have had a friend in the Army base where I was at that switched my orders from being a field wire repairman, a telephone pole climber, because if I had graduated from my advanced training as a field wire repairman, that I would have had probably a good chance of going to Vietnam. And I saw my bunkmate, small world department, about 20 years after 1971 at a paddle race in Waikiki, and he told me that a lot of guys, most guys that were in our basic training unit in 1970 were put in the infantry, and a lot of them didn't come back. For what, a black marketeering scoundrel, no dintiem.
Exactly. Would you? How do you feel about that? Obviously, it was 1969. You win the Surfer Magazine Surfer of the Year. You've had. We'll go through the success you had prior to that, but you in '69 you win that. You're looked at as the best surfer in the world. 1970 you sign up to go.
Right.
Luckily avoided getting shipped out.
Yeah.
Would you do it again today, knowing what you know now? How do you feel about that? Because Mum and Dad were both, Dad in the Coast Guard, Mum in the military.
Working for the military, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, probably not, because there's too much corporate influence, as well as the influence of the politicians who have the mindset. Well, we need to do this because they're elections are being paid for by these big corporations. Your arms manufacturers, your tobacco and liquor lobbyists, and the oil guys. They're all mostly looking to promote their own companies, and it doesn't matter if they have to prevaricate or give a false report about the conflicts that we're in, as long as it looks like the public can be deceived.
Yeah,
which is immoral, actually.
Thank you for your sentiment, though, and for the fact that you had the courage to do that, mate.
Yeah, a lot of people. Mom was pretty upset. You did what?
Yeah.
Because she knew what she knew what
the game was.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
But there are some good things that the military can do, and my mindset is that the militaries around the world would be much better utilized if they were all like corps of engineers, helping with the old dams and infrastructure for people that don't have electricity or clean water.
Yep.
But
100%.
Right now, it's not tending that way. But
it's a war machine, isn't it?
It could be that eventually the imperatives, the necessity for doing the right thing will just become too great for people to be throwing drones and missiles at each other and realize, hey, our economies are intertwined, and we really need, at the end, like there's a retired military guy that was talking about the Iran war, the conflict that we're in now, and he says, when it comes down to it, it's not just air power. You're talking with somebody that's 6 feet off the ground. Somebody you're dealing with. You're looking at eye to eye. It's
a different thing, isn't it?
It's a different thing.
Being a gamer, sitting at home, really playing a video game, but bombing people or whatever.
Yeah.
It's wild, isn't it, mate?
Mm-hmm.
Volunteer to work. This is back to Audrey's list of things that any kid should be able to do by the time they're 16, and we'll just go through. Volunteer to work for a month in each of those fields that you understood were perhaps a career opportunity, see if you liked it or not. Clean a paintbrush after use.
That's actually kind of tough, because if you're using latex paint, that's one thing. But if you're using oil paint, and to know what, and to not use the wrong paint, for the wrong wood or wrong surface that you want to coat.
Change a diaper and a tyre. I love that one extreme to the other, eh?
Yeah, but it's all part and parcel. Be a family man at home. If the wife is doing some dishes or cooking a meal or something, and the baby daughter, the baby son needs some help, you best be able to do it. And it doesn't matter if it smells bad. He's your kin. He's your blood. You take care of business. Yeah.
I love it. Listen to an adult talk with interest and empathy. Take initiative and responsibility for schoolwork and home chores. Again, empowering you to be able to do stuff with your life. Dance with any age.
That's important.
I can't do that. I'm scared of dancing. Honestly.
You shouldn't be.
I am, but I'm intimidated. I'm so scared of it.
If you can ride a bike or surf, you can dance. Just don't stay back on your heels. Be up on your toes a little bit.
And moving into things.
Yeah. Like a little salsa. You ever listen to Afro-Cuban music? It's great. It's great. It's good surfing music. And my girlfriend was ballet trained when she was younger, and so she and I love to dance, but we haven't danced I missed a chance when I was at a cancer benefit last year because we're at a nightclub and they were about ready to play some music. Yeah. And we walked out the door and she said, "Do you want to go back?" And I nixed it, and I shouldn't have. And so I told her, we need to dance.
That's great.
Because it helps, like surfing does, with the neuroplasticity, with the flexibility of your brain. And it helps the brain be able to interpret things differently, or to be able to anticipate things, like seeing a set come, before it gets to you.
Or the movement of a partner and knowing to kind of stay
in sync.
In
rhythm. Yeah.
Terrified of it.
You can do it, Barton. Confront it.
I'm going to have to, mate.
You got fine legs. You can do it, buddy.
Let's have a look. Know the basic 5 of first aid. Restore breathing and heartbeat, control bleeding, dilute poisons, immobilize fractures, treat for shock.
Yeah, those are big too, because people get into trouble easy.
Yeah, especially as a surfer. You know what I mean? And taking the risks we do. Write a business letter. Perfect. Could create a future for yourself. Spend the family income for all bills and necessities for 2 months.
That's not easy.
That's not easy at all.
Balance the checkbook, figure out
balance it,
what you need to sacrifice if you don't have enough money,
Yeah.
what are the priorities in there? How are we going to feed for a family of how many?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that,
Yes,
it just
six
said, it doesn't matter how big.
Yeah.
There's people that have, like Dwayne DeSoto, he's got like 8 kids.
Yeah, right.
But he's a provider, and his wife Malia is also very good.
Management of.
Yeah, she teaches the kid how to speak Hawaiian, and they all are very water capable from the time they're like 3-4 years old.
No basic auto mechanics and simple repair, of course.
Well, if you're going to drive cars, and helping somebody else out, that's like like a little old lady. She's on the side of the road, and going to help her out. Okay, this hose got disconnected here. We need to tighten up. Your hose.
Do you know that? Are you mechanically minded?
Not a ton, but enough. To
Yeah.
know that the machines, they're there to help you out. It's kind of like Siri.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Siri's willing to help you out. The car's willing to help you out, but the cars are another thing like a surfboard or hand tools is. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you, And if you don't take care of them, then they won't run right. Because they're going, you don't care about me. I'm going to quit on you. Yeah.
I love it. I could finish her up. Find your way across a strange city using public transportation.
Kids nowadays.
What a
it'd be
skill.
tough. Yeah.
That's, putting 2 and 2 together and figuring your way out through it.
Yeah.
Be happy and comfortable. I love this one. This was actually my favourite. Be happy and comfortable alone for 10 days, 10 miles from the nearest other person. Is
that shows her upbringing from the mountains. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your
and
mum
also,
right there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's because she valued her quiet and her solitude because she was a good thinker and she always had her books with her. But if she didn't, it didn't matter because she knew her way around her natural surroundings.
Yeah. And was able to deal with this. Some people, when you watch Alone and those shows and they're out, and it's the mind that gets them, and you can't deal with yourself. It's hard to kind of deal with all the thoughts and all the stuff you have to deal with when it's quiet all around.
Yeah.
And that's what that just is a beauty. Save someone drowning using available equipment.
Yeah.
Thank you, Audrey. Your mum passed away
Yes.
in 2014, I believe, was it something?
15.
2015, 94 years of age.
Yeah.
Great life.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah, rest in peace, Audrey, and thank you for that list, mate. And you can see such simple things, but you'd be knowing a little bit electrical, a little mechanical. If you had those simple things, geez, your life's going to be an easier ship to drive into your future.
If they're all like instinctual,
Yes.
this is what we need to do. Okay, I'm on it. Because I know how it should be performed, and if I don't have the right equipment, the right diaper or something, I'll go and get a dishcloth or whatever. Like I had some friends, Charlie Smith's family, when they grew up, they didn't use plastic diapers,
Right.
disposable diapers. It was all cotton. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. What a great influence she must have been, mate. Let's talk about you and your surfing a little bit, because we haven't even really spoke about it, but you had a great career there. 1965, you were the Makahe International Junior second place.
Yeah.
And then you went in 1966 at the world contest at Ocean Beach.
Yeah, behind Nat.
Nat Young won that one, in 66.
He did. He kind of ran over the rest of us.
Was that an equipment thing, or was he? How do you?
Both.
Both. Yeah.
A thin board that was fast, and it was suited his style because it would accelerate, on his turns, and it had a Greenoat style fin. Right. Excuse me. And he also was a big fella, but he was agile.
Right.
And he grew up, like you can see his imitation of midget. He was way ahead of his time as far as being able to see where the wave was going to go, his ability to utilize the wave a lot more efficiently than the rest of us. And so he deserved that win easily.
Yeah, you felt like that second place. Amazing. I actually texted with the great Wayne Lynch today.
Winnie.
Yeah.
Good man.
A good man.
I think maybe it was his shoulder that was giving him trouble, or his neck, something like that.
Yeah, this is what Wayne said to me when I told him we were catching up today. He goes, "What a great human and surfer. Was such a source of inspiration for me as a kid. One of the most historically underrated surfers ever."
Yeah. Thank you, Wayne. But
Goofy family, brother. Goofies.
yeah. That's right. Yeah. Good, but you should learn to switch, Barton.
I know. Well,
It's not
you
that.
were
It's
a
not.
master, right?
Well, I learned from some pretty good guys, Butch Van Arsdalen from
Yes.
La Jolla. He was like a very good baseball player and football player, as well as, but he bailed on both of those. He could have been, pro.
Right.
Right. But he decided to become a surfer.
Surfer.
But Windansea, you ever surf Windansea on a good day?
No, I haven't. I know that's where PK's from.
Oh, yeah?
That's his home, Windansea.
Oh, yeah? You ever know Matt Reimel?
Very well. We're the exact same age.
Butch Van Arsdalen was one of, known back in the time as Mr. Pipeline, one of the Mr. Pipelines over the history, and you've been known
He
in
was
that
he was the
capacity
first,
as well.
to be able
Yeah.
to ride the pipe, when it was 8 or 10 feet on a bigger board, kind of a not so tapered board, a heavier board with kind of some blobby rails.
Yeah.
You had to hand it to him, but that showed his ability as an athlete. And to see him switch feet, I go, oh wow, I wonder if I could do that. And so I slowly tried, in smaller ways, got so that I could do it. And then when I moved to Maui and went to Honolulu Bay, I was able to put the regular foot to good use.
Get barreled over there.
Well, yeah. When I got lucky, but
When we were kids, I was at Manly Beach, and they had a sewer outfall just around the corner from Fairy Bower.
Right.
And whenever the wind would blow southerly,
but you could tell.
all the poop would come in, and people, you couldn't surf. I surfed in the most disgusting stuff because I was possessed.
You're lucky you didn't get sick.
We called our board riders club off Manly Beach Wind and Sewerage. And we took the Wind and Sea logo and changed it to Wind and Sewerage Board Riders Club, and that was the closest I've come to Wind and Sea.
Well, it's like a reef rake, and it stands up pretty quickly, and so you got to be good on your feet, and you got to be have a good sense of what the wave's going to do, because it'll hook on you, and then it'll peel all the way, and if you're too close, you get flushed up in on the beach there because you can't get out of it soon enough.
Yeah.
But it's a great wave, and that was one of the reasons that Butch was able. Of course, there's Big Rock.
Big
too,
Rock, yeah, I
but-
was going to say that, yeah.
But Butch is a great guy to emulate, and I feel lucky to at least have been able to talk to him and be part of the world that he was in for a couple of short years anyway.
Yeah. And that was that your main inspiration here at Pipeline? Who inspired?
Yeah,
Yep.
probably,
Yep.
yeah. But the guys that I would come out with, they said that they brought me out here when I was about 14 years old.
Okay.
And those were the longer board era, the clunkier boards, and I pearled up to my neck, and 80% of the time, and finally learned how to take off on an angle, and I got a decent board or two after a while, a old Bill Bragg gun that was kind of cool. But that's what Jerry says, is that I helped him learn a couple of things. In his book, he gives me some credit.
So you would kind of go from Butch Van Arsdalen and Jerry Lopez, and there's Jock Sutherland in the middle there as a period of time where you're
could say.
referred and looked at as Mr. Pipeline.
But I was also over on Maui for a year and a half, or almost two, over there. So
Was that when you were living with Hackman?
I was living with Jeff for a little while. Yeah. We'd surf Honolulu Bay, pretty good. Sometimes bigger, and sometimes you could take off on the second point and ride it all the way through the first point. But we were also good ding patchers because there were no leashes.
Yeah, what a place to surf with no leash.
Well, the same thing held me in good stead at Jocko's because for years there was no leashes until like 1978, 80. The training I had at Honolulu Bay riding conservatively held me in good stead at Jocko's, but I probably was surfing it inconsistently from the time of 1966 or so, and so for 15 years there was no leashes.
Yeah.
But when the leashes came in, let's pull in, let's take off late, so.
Yeah.
But now my son Gavin is taking it to the nth degree because sometimes Jocko's It needs a little teeny bit of north because, as you know, even pipe, if it's too west, will pinch on you.
Yeah.
But if it's got a little north, then it will wedge, and you can get a world-class tube there. As a matter of fact, that's very good training for pipe.
That was my training spot. That's, in those days we were talking
Yeah.
about me wifing out in front of you.
Yeah.
That was that double up on that inside with
Oh,
the
yeah,
north in. It's a serious takeoff.
It's serious. It can happen quick. You're not to your feet. You're not getting down. And also, there's a crosswell that comes across of it.
Yes.
Sometimes, and so you have to you can't paddle right over that crosswell coming across because then it's too fat and you won't be able to get in the wave. So, and if you're not far enough on the other side to be able to take off, then you have to go with the crosswell and to the right, so to be able to get in there.
Yeah.
But it's a great wave. You can get a world-class tube. And speaking of that, Ramon Navarro,
Yes.
about 10 years ago, I saw him pull in a wave about not much more than 6 feet, but it was at the far end, the Laniakea end of the reef, and it had just enough north so it was hooking, so it was bending, and he pulled in, and he's in there for about 3 seconds. I'm going, oh, that's a beautiful wave, but it's too long. He can't make it, and the wave's peeling along, and I'm going, gee, I don't see a board. So he's probably in there for like 5 or 6 or 7 seconds. Longest tube by far that I've ever seen. I've seen guys get 2-3 second tubes.
Right.
Gavin's gotten them, not
Yeah.
me. I'll get like a
Guaranteed.
2 second or maybe
I guarantee.
3 second maybe.
I guarantee.
No. But Ramon, I had to hand it to him, and I paddled out, and I go, very good work, sir. Shake his hand. He's a great guy as well as a good surfer. But
Yeah, I remember one he got at Cloudbreak. It was one of the
Oh, yeah.
craziest tubes I've ever seen. Maybe the craziest tube you've ever seen.
not the giant wave.
Giant wave and one
Like
massive
15
day.
feet plus. That Cole Christensen towed him into us.
Yeah, those days. That's swell, yeah.
Yeah, but I'd like to surf it one day.
Yeah.
But not 15 feet though. Like the
That's-
picture of Mark Healy bailing
With the
his
board?
Yeah.
Oh, terrifying, eh?
He said that as he's paddling for the wave, he sees it starting to fringe, and and he's a little bit too far inside. And he says, "Okay," because he's got a quick release leash. He says he's paddling his butt off, and he says, "I got half a second
Right.
to go, get that leash off and dive because otherwise he's going to go over the falls." Right?
Oh, you could die. You literally could die in that situation, obviously.
Yeah. Davey Wassel tried to duck dive through one.
You got a crazy one that day too. How does it feel to have a surf spot named after you? Carries your name, your legacy with it.
Now,
Forever.
Feels pretty good, but
Yeah.
a lot of people say, "Oh, you should be able to get any wave you want." I'm going, well, it doesn't work that way. Like half the time, guys don't know me, and I don't want them to know me. Because I'm not expecting any gift waves. I'll wait my turn,
Yeah.
but it feels good. And when somebody introduces me to somebody else who's like not so experienced, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, he's got a spot named after him." I gotta cringe a little bit.
Yeah, right. Too humble, mate.
Well,
very cool.
it's better to be overly not. You can be overly humble and so you can be self-effacing and humble to a degree, but not unrealistically, not falsely.
Yeah, totally. In Australia, we'd most probably call it not like a wanker.
Yeah.
Talk about 1967, the biggest event in the world's the Duke Kahanamoku Invitational, and you win that.
Right. The year before that was the first year I was surfing in it because in the first contest that Jeff Hackman won,
Right.
and it wasn't real big, but Jeff had been surfing Sunset and Waimea from the time he was 12 years old,
Right.
and he's like 17, so he's been at it for 5 years, right? And his dad was a good surfer, and the older guys like me, took him under their wing, and during that contest, that first contest in '65, they let me go out as water patrol with a white shirt on, in case somebody lost their board, to help them out. Next year, and Jeff put in a word, with Kimo McVeigh, Duke's manager. And so next year that Ricky Gregg won, I got into the finals and did okay. I got 5th place or something. And that was when I had my wonderful 10.5 Brewer board, just a magic board. And then the next year, I had a nice 9.8 Brewer, maybe it had the Duke label. It was Greg Knoll board.
Yep.
And so Greg Knoll was my boss actually for a while.
Yep.
Great guy, Greg. And I got lucky because I was able to I was riding regular foot, and I got a couple cover-ups. Actually,
Yeah, you can
sometimes
switch.
sometimes the curl will just have a little warble and a little bounce, and it'll throw over, and you go, oh wow, I got in the tube, and I got 2 cover-ups on the same wave,
Right,
so
right.
then I won it, but Mike Doyle didn't want that to be the true result, because he said, we were out there and on the outer reef catching the bigger ones, we should, this result shouldn't hold, we should have it at Waimea or Big Macaw. And I go, okay.
Yeah.
But they let it stand, and then next year Mikey won it, that was the first year they put in money.
Oh, right. The following year.
Yeah, the following year.
Yeah.
But money wasn't, it would have been nice to have money, but at that time, I was already on the Duke surf team. I had been invited to join like 6 months earlier.
Right.
Jeff Hackman got me to, he browbeat basically Kimmel McVeigh, Duke's manager.
Yes.
And you've probably seen the picture of us in Las Vegas, meeting Bob Goulet, and we got our Paisley print sport coats on.
Yes. Nice, stylish.
But, so I got pretty lucky, but I also didn't lose my board and got a couple good ways and was able to win it. And there's pictures of my shaking the Duke's hand, getting.
Yeah.
And so I want to get the guys that made the movie Waterman about the Duke. Sidewinder Productions, I guess. I told them, hey, I'd like to have a still, frame grab out of that,
Yeah, shaking hands
But
with the Duke.
yeah. But anyways, so that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then 2 months later, he was gone.
Okay.
So I was able to win it.
That close.
Yeah, and it was funny because when I got onto the Duke surf team like April or March of '67, Kimo was like, oh man, yeah, okay, Jeff, we'll put Jock in the surf team, and because the guys that were the original surf team were the older guys like Joey and Butch Venowitz and Freddie Hemmings and Paul Stroud.
Yeah.
And Joey would go on to win it in '69, I think.
Right.
And a very, very good surfer. He and Paul Stroud were 2 of the guys that, as well as Butch, and Fred, he's an okay guy. He's a likable guy, put-a-hole guy, football player, Republican, what can you say?
Yeah.
But so Jeff basically, so Kimo McVeigh wasn't that convinced, that the younger crew, even though Jeff had won the first one, he wasn't that convinced that his older guys were not, in the vanguard, because
Right.
I think Paul Stroud got 3rd and George Downing got 2nd behind me in that contest, which are a great couple of guys to be with. George, another great guy to look up to, and he also was part of the, like Wally Froyseth, the local Hawaiian guys that were like Greg Nolan, Buzzy Trent, would take me under their wing, when we were out on such big Laniakea, and I'd take off and not notice that the wave was jacking up, I'd be barely able to hang on my toenails and make the takeoff, and George would be paddling back on, and he'd go, nice drop, kid. I just like, because that's the compliment of compliments coming from somebody like that.
Yeah.
And if he thought that was pretty good, then and even though you knew it was pretty good, to have somebody like that validate it, that's cool.
Yeah. How does it feel having lived in that family, as a part of that family, as one of the elders of our tribe for so long? It's a magic gift.
It's great. Yeah, it's great. But that's why it behooves me to try to overcome any stiffness or joint debilitation, and maybe. Well, I'm already been trying that for a couple of years. Is not to push myself so hard that I'm getting hurt worse. That I'm causing my knees or shoulders to get permanently damaged. You hear stories about guys that have gotten torn their shoulder up, or torn their knee, so bad that they had to have it replaced. And so it's great to be and somewhat of a decent shape still, that I can get out, pipe it, or 6 feet or 8 feet or something. I don't know about 8, but if it's glassy and it's user friendly, sometimes the conditions can change that quickly And if you're on the spot, like I was working at the Volcom roof
Yeah.
about 3-4 years ago, and the contest was going to be the next day. It was in February or something. And because I was working on the Volcom roof, Kaimana Henry was out in the water.
Gotcha.
Right. And so I go, oh, wow, I got my board with me, you know, my 8-foot George Koo. And I see a couple waves coming wide out there, you know, there's nobody on them. So I paddled out and I waited, and then there's a couple wide ones coming. And what helped my wave choice, and you know what happens if you take off on the first wave of a set at Pipeline?
Yeah.
There's 10 guys paddling out right where you want to go.
Yeah.
And so I'd wait my chance because there's 3 or 4 waves in a set. And especially if Kaimana would be sitting close by, you know, like 30, 40 feet away, and he'd go, Jock, go. The rest of the guys, you know,
Yeah, perfect.
but I wouldn't, to my credit, I wouldn't be taking off if there's somebody that was within 20, 30 feet of me that looked like they had, you know, because you notice who's catching a wave, who's not. And if somebody is in position and you know, they haven't had one, you want to give them one because it's part and parcel of being not necessarily charitable, but being a good sport.
Yeah.
You know, being a kind human being. You know,
There you go.
even with women, you know, hey, come over here. You know, if you see me take off, you know, take off on my shoulder. You know, that's why surfing is so great, is that you can almost get as good a feeling as getting a tube yourself as getting somebody else a wave.
Yeah.
Having them come back going, oh man, that was the best tube I ever had.
Yeah.
And in reality, that happened to me at Halton's one time when it was like 12 feet coming off of Lonnie's. If there's a teeny bit of west in it, the same wave that there'll be like 10 guys at Lonnie's wanting to go off, it'll come through Halton's and there'll be only 4 or 5 of you over there.
Yeah.
And this guy, Rudy, he took off on this like 12 or 15 foot face. You know, I kind of didn't want it because it was, well, man, almost a little bit too mean. And I go, Rudy, go, you know. And he came back out and he was going, that's the best way ever. And so he was all fired up. But it's to me, it's very close to as good a feeling to riding a good wave yourself as to getting somebody else one.
Yeah.
You know, it's calling them in, but not. Don't call them in on something.
On a lemon.
Yeah.
Sell them a lemon, we call that. Yeah.
You kind of don't want to do that, but if it's your mate, you know, and maybe he's had too many ways, you know, here's one, you know, go. But sometimes they'll look at you going, no, that's a mush burger there, you know, the heck with you, you know. But so that's why surfing's so great, is that as it can be so many things. Even though there's like 25, 35 people in the water and there's only 2 waves in a set, you tell yourself, I'll just paddle out, you know, for the exercise, and if I get a wave or 2, then it's a bonus.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do. Sometimes a wave will come out of nowhere, you know, and like it'll be off the point at Chun's. Chip Hartman, who was a fireman here for many years, he used to help trim my mom's coconut trees. He and I were looking at Chun's one day about 6 years ago. And it's got a little sideshore wind, but we noticed, I think town was good too, that there's only like 2 guys out. And we saw a wave come off the point and peel the whole way, no sections. And there's another one behind it. And we're going, what the heck? We're out there. And we paddle out, and it's hardly any crowd, and the waves were reeling from the point. And we're just going, how good is it? So it happens.
Yeah.
Can happen.
Still.
Yeah.
If you're on it.
If you're on it, yeah.
What's the secret? What's the fountain of youth? How have you maintained such a level of performance as long as you have?
Well,
and continue to inspire us all, mate.
Having the genes is one thing, and also having the sense of respect for what went before you and your own evolution, and being able to be appreciative of the quality of the boards that you're able to ride, and having guys like Chuck Andrus or George Koo or even Brewer, you know, to be able to give you the good boards at cost, and say, you know, just buy the blank, you know, and we'll take care of it from there. And so you help them with their roof or whatever you can do. But it's basically just being happy to be somewhat in decent shape, that you can anticipate, you can see where the good waves there are coming, and be appreciative of the other people in the water that either want to give you a wave or they want to share waves with you. Like there's a fellow at Jocko's, a Japanese guy named Miles Hirata, good longboarder, good surfer, and his group helps take care of the yard there at Chun's behind every other Saturday or so. And Jocko's was like 8-10 feet perfect, just come up slightly over towards Halton's, it's peeling perfectly, and Miles hadn't had a wave in a couple of minutes, and so here comes this beautiful 8-foot wave, and I tell Miles, go, and he starts to paddle for it, and he's not looking at me, right? He's looking to where the wave is stacking up, and I can't resist. I take off. I took off behind him, and he sees me behind him, and he kicks out, and I felt so bad.
Oh, I've done that to people too. You feel terrible,
yeah. Afterwards, I'm sorry, Miles. But he forgave me, but I still owe him.
Yes.
And I stole a wave from my girlfriend about 6 or 8 years ago that I still owe her for.
Stole a wave off your girlfriend?
Yeah. It was a perfect wave at the shores, like 3 or 4 foot wave, perfect, And I go, and I turn around and I dropped in on her. So I still owe her for that.
Still paying.
Yeah, she still remembers it, but she forgives me because I've actually in the old days would help push her, come behind her, but now she doesn't want to be pushed anymore. But she's able to paddle good enough, and she can handle it if it's like head high, and there's a set coming. But she doesn't like it if it's too big or mean. But she's quite capable, and she has a lot of good fun doing it, and so. And I love being in the water.
That's the main thing.
Oh, yeah.
Let's take a little walk through the decades, if we may, and kind of, start at the 50s and tell us what, just briefly in your feelings, what those times represented to surfing and what it was all about at those times. 1950s here on the North Shore. How was that?
Well, that's when I was still in the third grade. I was, 8 years old or so, 7 years old, and just barely able to stand up. My mom said that I would be standing up parallel foot, and I needed to learn to put one foot in front of the other. And eventually, a couple years later, I started out on my dad's little bit bigger balsa board, which made things at White Plains on the other side. But in the 50s, there wasn't many people out at Chun's, just very few people.
Yeah.
And when we came back a few years later, it would start to get crowded, and probably in the late 60s, there could be as many as 80 or 100 people out.
What was the 60s like?
It was fun because boards were changing. Even though you could get a pretty good longboard, in 1964 or 5, that 2 years later, that when the shortboards came in, and McTavish and Brewer, were carving these beauties, and you watched what Nat Young did, and you're going, okay. I need to step up my game a little bit. You can't just be running up to the nose and posing, right, anymore. But we already kind of knew that.
That was coming.
Yeah.
What about the 70s?
That was great too because the equipment had gotten really pretty good with McTavish and Brewer and all their proteges, Wayne Lynch and all the decent people from South Africa and South America was starting to get people, and so that was a great time. Even though I was starting to raise a family, I still had time to. I would ask my wife, Mark Cunningham's sister.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Franny. Yeah. Good woman. We're still on good terms.
Fantastic.
And so she let me get out there on a weekend, or after work or something, and. It was still very much fun, even though I didn't surf in hardly any contests. Maybe the Haleiwa contest, in December, which is an amateur contest, and so that was a good time. And then, and in the late '70s, I moved down towards Silver Channels.
Oh.
I lived down there for about 6 or 8 years, and so that was good too. But it started to get crowded down there. But that there's some good breaks down there, Daystar and Silver Channels and breaks down there were all good fun. So I wasn't surfing real consistently either in the 70s or the 80s, but enough to stay in shape. And a few slightly bigger days, like say Lonnie's, or some Jockos. Broke my leg in 1981, and so I was gun shy for about a year after that one. But I was, because I didn't have a whole lot of workman's comp insurance, I was out on my own, that I was climbing around the roofs with a full leg cast on. I don't think I have any pictures of that.
And you're trying to tell Gavin to take it easier.
Yeah, he knew me when, so what can I do?
Yeah.
But I got to impress upon him that he needs to be able to roof for another 20 years, and so he's got to pace himself, because if he gets like right now, he's got a pretty sore knee, and he had some sciatica that was so bad the other year that he wasn't able to do his assistant boatman duties very well with a learner down there at Tavarua.
Yeah.
But I think he'll listen to me, because his girlfriend is a local Portuguese gal, and she's like not even 100 pounds, but she's hauling around. She's helping them do tear-offs, and she's got her own nail gun and stuff, and so she's a comer. But she loves him very much, and between her and me, I think we're going to be able to impress upon him what he's going to need to do.
Needs to have longevity.
Yeah.
And then the 90s, I know you said you were impressed by the momentum generation and that time.
Yeah. It was great to watch them, and even nowadays to see some of the turns that get, like when Gums gets to be a good sandbar over there. That wedging stuff out there, to see Kelly do what he does so well. But there's a raft of other young guys that are very close to Kelly. If not necessarily better.
So many great surfers, and getting younger and younger.
Yeah. 12-year-old kids, even out here at Pipe, you've probably seen there'll be like a group of a half dozen, 8, 9-year-old kids, and they're very hard on each other, but they'll watch and they'll see they're not going to drop in on you.
Yeah.
But if one of their own drops in on each other, you hear them. But mostly their dads have taught them. Proper respect and pecking order. Yeah, the etiquette.
Yeah, and in the 2000s, we've seen waves like Chopu come onto the map and see incredible things there. The toe surfing, Jaws. Can you believe what you see nowadays?
What about Nazare?
Nazare.
I mean, guys going right and not Ross Clark Jones
and then
climbing up the
cliff.
Rosie.
In part, you're responsible for this behaviour in this day and age, because you guys were the same adventurous spirit back then.
Jumping off the cliff at Honolulu Bay on a 6-foot day. Okay, here we go.
Off the cave?
Yeah. Jumping off just at the right time, not when there's another huge set coming towards the end of the set. Yeah. But you also need to be a good paddler, and you also ought to be careful. I see guys jumping off, holding the board under their arm. But that's okay, but the wind can catch you, and then it's all of a sudden under your neck, Yeah. So it's a timing thing, just like anything else. But you learn to appreciate what good timing can do for you.
Well, I'll tell you one time that I had the privilege of witnessing you, and I believe it was the Haleiwa Open, and we're not going back too long. This might be 10 ago. It might even be more recent, but it was the Haleiwa Open. They'd run the normal open division, and it was the over 60 something
over
division.
55 sometimes. They might not have had it over 60, but yeah.
Yeah, and they call it, and it's, let's set the scene, peoples. Haleiwa is 10 to 15 feet, and it's starting to lose it. It's losing it. It's not starting. It's lost it.
Like there's some waves almost coming across the channel from avalanche.
Totally, right?
Yeesh.
I don't know if you remember this day.
I think I do.
And so they call the division. And I'm thinking, well, no one's going to go out there like that, are they? Because I was scared, and I was watching, and it was tough for the regular open division, in their prime.
Yeah. They might have sent out the juniors. Yeah.
And then they call your division.
Yeah.
Nobody else turns up.
Right.
You're the only surfer who reports for a jersey.
Right.
And I'm sitting there watching, and I'm thinking, he's crazy. He's ready. And you didn't have to surf because no one else was going to surf. Right. It was you and you alone.
Yeah, but I wanted to catch a couple.
Tell us this. You wanted to, and you paddled out into maxing out Haleiwa on your own, well into your 60s, when you didn't need to. There was no ego. There was no reason to do it besides.
Could have been almost 70 at the time.
It's incredible, mate. I watched that, and it was one of the moments where I went, That's if I could be a half of what you were on that day and have that courage and still that physicality, mate.
There was maybe a little bit of egotism in there, but I just wanted to try to go out and catch one or two. But there was a jet ski in the water at the time.
Yeah, but that was one of those moments where I went, Uncle Jock's crazy, mate. He's a wild man.
It was calculated because I didn't paddle over into the main peak, because sometimes if you're sitting at the main peak, that you'll get pulled a little bit further, and then if there's a big enough set coming, you get caught.
You smoked and washed all the way around into the harbour, even
that, or they don't find you anymore because you're stuffed underneath a cave, underneath the reef.
Exactly.
But anyways,
that was one of them days that impressed upon me what an incredible waterman you are still.
And a little bit out of his mind.
I did think that at the time. I was like,
what's he doing?
Crazy, seriously.
Did you ask him about the very first time you paddled out a pipe? What
No,
year?
we haven't asked that question. How was the very first time you paddled out a pipeline?
I
Do you
don't remember
that?
because I was probably 14.
Yeah.
But
What year?
when I was 14, that would have been 1962 or 3.
I was born 1963. Yeah. You're out
But
there.
it was on a pretty clunky board, and I probably purled 8 out of. I don't even know if I tried for 8 out of 10 waves, because you just get worked. So, but a friend of mine, Herbie Knudsen, who was a longtime lifeguard on the east side, worked as a fireman for a while. He was a kind of Mark Cunningham's mentor, one of Mark's mentors.
Yeah.
And he said that he brought me out here when I was like 13 or 14 or something. But so I don't remember the particular day, but I think I remember not doing very well.
Yes.
And getting my butt handed to me. But then because I was able to learn, and I was eager to be able to, okay, this is pipeline, so what am I going to do the next time? And so you learn about how to take off, how to paddle, how to angle on the takeoff, because you've got a board that you can't go straight because it doesn't have enough rocker.
Yeah.
And so probably by the end of 1964, I was able to almost get the hang of it. In 65, I was being able to be a little more confident.
Yeah.
And so probably it took 2 years of trying, but not too much because I didn't have a car. I didn't have a bummer ride.
Yeah. And if you fall, you've got to swim to the beach and paddle back out. There's no leashes, no water safety.
Right. But everybody was pretty good watermen because they were all divers and also body surfers. Because like I say, all surfers were body surfers back then. Because, trying to get your board, even pipe, you take off on a pretty good sized wave just to get washed in, right?
Yeah.
But it was heady times back then in the early 60s, but probably don't remember the first time, but maybe a year or two later, having a Bill Bragg board, like a 9.4, 9.6 pintail. Mm-hmm. And it worked well. It was kind of like a mini gun, one of my early boards, and I was lucky to get it because it had enough speed and paddleability so that it got me in early, which is key, and I had enough rocker.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty good board. He went on to be a Olympic kayak coach there in like Santa Monica or somewhere. But so there's all kind of historical things that come up even now that I never knew were around. Like a friend of mine lives at Sunset. He used to be a captain of the lifeguards at Malibu. His name's Angus Anderson. But
Alexander.
yeah.
I know double A. Yeah, I know Angus.
Yeah, great guy. But you ever see the picture inside of his house of Malibu when it's 12 to 15 feet? No?
I don't think I have, no.
Yeah. So the lifeguard headquarters are on the pier,
Yeah.
and Malibu is 12 to 15 feet, and it's tubing like backdoor.
Coming towards the pier.
Coming towards the pier. Yeah, just shaking the whole pier and stuff, and they got to put the boat down, off the davits and stuff to get into the water. But Angus, great guy. He's got some back issues or some medical stuff. I tried to give him some herbs, but he said it wasn't. This doctor said it wasn't for him because it would be counterindicative, of some of his meds. But great guy, love him.
What advice would you give to young people growing up in the world today from your experiences of life and having made so much of it like you have?
Pretty easy. The first thing, I'd tell them, you got to leave your cell phone at home for a couple of minutes. No, but basically, is you need to learn what the old people did, like during the 30s and 40s when things are a lot harder. You know, how they fended for themselves, how they provided for their families, how they worked together, and in the real old days, how grandma and granddad would take care of the kids while mom was working in, say, the taro fields, and dad was out fishing, and the kids were taught not to be frivolous, not to be playing a bunch of loud, noisy, dumb games at home, because that lack of respectful energy would carry out to mom or dad, especially dad, who's out there fishing. And so basically it would be, the advice that I would give would be pay attention to the intrinsic, to the natural law, not law, but the natural imperatives that the world around you, the natural world around you can give you, can offer you, as far as being able to grow into a capable human being that can take care of not only himself but other members of the family or the community if they need it. But first you need to be capable yourself, and the way that you do that is by listening and paying attention to older people that can give you the lessons, can give you the techniques, the tools, the abilities to be able to create, not only a life for yourself, but also create a sense of need to be part of the framework that's the community that you live in, that's part of the state, or that part of the ocean that you live in, and be aware of other cultures, that might could offer you similar tools.
Perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective. Yeah. Anticipation, be able to see what's coming before it happens to you, to be able to, okay, this might happen here, this looks like the energy's coming this way, I'm going to need to be able to divert it, to pull that energy and put it like judo kind of thing, to be able to turn that energy. Like a negative energy is still energy, and to be able to turn that negativity into something that could be constructive. You can have somebody that's really angry, really aggro, just really upset with himself, not happy with himself, and putting this on other people. But you can see that if you have the right word to say, or the right tools, or the right food to give him, that he can be turned, he can be not converted, but he can be changed into a force for the good, and be happy for himself as well, and being able to help other people as well as himself. Yeah.
And that comes from the gratitude just for the opportunity to be alive.
That too.
To have a moment to take seriously, like you said. Yeah. Big thank you to Audrey Sutherland. You guys should check out her list of things that every kid should do by 16. Every parent should have a read of that. So practical. And I feel like she'd be so proud of you, mate. As her son, and the way you've lived and what you've done. What you just said is what you've done for thousands of us, younger people who have watched you throughout the years, mate.
Well, that's the value, although it sometimes doesn't seem like a valuable thing, of the media, the magazines. At first, people will go, oh, you were, Mom used to like to say, oh, he was like #1 in the world. I go, Mom, it's just a magazine poll, there's like a dozen guys, before me that were very capable, big Makaha Point Surf, big Laniakea, Sunset, Waimea. These guys were before me. They were capable, and the guys that would take me under their wing, or not necessarily under my wing, but my group, my peer group, the 6 or 8 or 10 guys that I surf with that would push me, all these guys to me, were equally deserving of this kind of title. And so to expect me to say, oh yeah, I really was this, or I was that, or pat myself on the back. Yeah. My girlfriend used to tell me a phrase in Spanish that's a great phrase. It's called, no necesita abuelita. An abuela is a grandmother, and an abuelita is a little grandmother, and no necesita means you don't need a little grandmother to pat yourself on the back because you're doing such a good job yourself.
Yes, that's right.
So
Yes.
yeah, don't break your arm patting yourself on the back. But,
Yeah.
but so humility is a very big thing. But like I say, you don't want to be false. You don't want to contrive. You don't want to make a show of being unnecessarily. You want to try to take credit, but recognize and make people sure that they know why you got where you are, and the fealty, the loyalty that you need to continue to profess for the people who were the pioneers, the real pioneers, as well as your peer group, and as well as the young people nowadays that have all disability, because most of them have got a sense of perspective. Mm-hmm. Most of them are willing to give ways to you. There's a few of us out here that are still a little bit, I mean, we say they need to see an optometrist because they have eye problem. But anyways, it's a great world to still be capable in, Barton. And when I was out at Pipe about a year ago, I probably told you this already, a guy's out there, he's like 55 or 60, his son's out there with him, 10, 12-year-old, and he realizes he's not the oldest guy in the water. And then he comes up to me and he goes, because he's like 6 feet, occasional little sets, overhead sets come in. And, I'm having fun, it's because it's about my speed. And he says, so how long have you been surfing out here? I go, about 60 years. So did you hear that, son? But, it's still good to be able to have somewhat of a physical capability to be able to get out there in the water. Main thing is to be able to enjoy it and help other people that are in the water that are not having that good of a time. Don't ride too small of a board.
Just quietly from Uncle Jock. Don't ride too small.
That's kind of my mission, because guys have an idea. So this guy that was from the Big Island, that's a big turmeric farmer.
Oh, yeah.
He said he was out of Jocos and he's riding like a 5'10" or a 6'2", and he just got flushed. I told him, Anthony, don't do that to yourself, because if you ride a slightly big, even a 2 feet bigger than you're riding, that you can still turn it. If you get back on the tail a little bit, you can still maneuver it. But you can catch more waves. You can escape if there's a bigger set coming.
Yeah.
And if you're determined enough, you can duck dive a bigger board like that. Mm-hmm. You just got to kind of knife it a little.
Give it that angle.
Yeah.
I know that angle in.
It can be done.
Yeah, it can be done. Right. So much can be done. I appreciate your time, your wisdom.
So you know how Gavin and I pronounce your name, right?
No.
Barton.
That's me. We love Gav, sending our love out to Gav. And we also mentioned Paul Strow in the interview, and he just passed away recently too. So we send our respects and love to Paul Strow for everything he did for surfing too. And it's people like yourselves and Paul that gave me a future. A kid that could actually have a job and spend his life working in and around surfing. What a gift that has been. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome, and it's been a rewarding thing for me to be able to talk like 20 years ago to Bernard Farrelly, people like that. When they would first come up, and I would address him as Bernard.
Right.
Not midget. No.
He lived where I lived towards the end. I was at Palm Beach, Whale Beach. I grew up there, but I moved away when my dad died, and then in '93 I moved back there. And Midget was at Whale Beach Surf Club. My dad was at Whale Beach Surf Club, so I spent a lot of time in his last 5 years sitting on benches at the beach, talking story with Midget, and he would share so much with me, because Midget was a guy that didn't feel like he could really share much with many people because it was a bit, precarious or dangerous or judgmental.
An element of contention.
Yeah. So with me, he kind of felt like he opened up and he shared so much with me, and I love him like a father figure.
Yeah.
Like
he went through a lot. He felt, unfortunately, not disconsolate, but he was a little bit disappointed when Nat basically took his mantle away, basically.
Took his mantle.
But this is what happens when you're emulating somebody else and you're not so confident of your own ability, even though he should be. He was a very good surfer. Mm-hmm. That he got to be almost bitter
Right. Yes.
And
With
it's
that
unfortunate.
foundation he saw and took,
Yeah.
he's able to build upon it.
Well, he should have encouraged it and gone, okay, and just been able to take a back seat and, all right, I'm still having fun, you go ahead. And it's like you could see early shots of Midget, how he surfed kind of like Phil Edwards. He had seen Phil Edwards surfing. And you probably know the story about one of the first world contests when Midget won.
Yeah, Manly Beach.
Yeah, do you know the inside story on that?
Well, Joey Cabell did talk
Yes.
about him being one of the potential people that people thought should win, but he dropped in so much. And Joey said that he thought that was the start of rules around catching waves into competition, because he didn't really know that was such a bad thing at the time.
Right. Well, it wasn't. You were encouraged, from a long time ago to ride with each other.
Right, yeah.
But the story that I heard was that Joey, basically was a little bit more capable, a little bit more smooth, a little bit more behind the curl kind of a surfer, because that's how he grew up, surfing boards without fins and at Queens and stuff, and then Makaha and Big Honolulu, he's a very capable surfer. But at that contest, supposedly, the story was that because Phil was the head judge,
Right.
and Phil didn't like Joey,
Oh.
so Phil juiced it on Midget's behalf.
Was that a competitive thing between the two of them, you think?
Probably because
yeah.
Phil had his own self opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, we like to imitate him. He'd be paddling out the channels. I'd try to hang 10 in front. Well, look at this, But he was a very good surfer. But he also became bitter in his older age, because guys would pick on him out in the water, when he was like, less than my age, say 70, early 70s or something, even though he was a great shaper and stuff.
Yeah.
And guys would pick on him.
He didn't feel that was...
He was like little piranhas, the little dogs.
Steal.
Old man, get out of the water,
Yeah.
You just got to go, I'm sorry, I'm surfing this. You don't want to tell them, I was surfing this before you were. You just say, I can still have a good time out here,
Yeah.
Give me a break,
Yeah, just share them around, mate.
And if they don't, that happened to me at Black's, and I paddled inside on a longboard, and the guys are going, they're giving me a lip, And I'm going, guys, I can be generous, I can give ways to, don't have a preconception here, would you please, have a little respect, but you don't want to go on at length, you just go, guys, give it up, this ain't the way to do it, But poor Phil, poor Midget too, they're just, once, the magazines, elevate you and stuff like that,
And then drop you or whatever, and you've got to feel...
Yeah, but Phil's a great guy, good shaper, excellent surfer, and Midget too, good guy, it's just, you got to watch out for what's coming,
Awareness has been a big part of what I've got from our conversation. Aware of yourself in the ocean, aware of the words you're saying, aware of the energy you're putting out there.
They're just growing up on the North Shore. That's kind of, people tell you, hey, don't try to be a chief, because we're working together here. Don't be getting a big body. Don't be getting your too high opinion of himself, because
Hi, mucky.
yes. Because if you're thinking like a lot of Western people, we Western people think through our heads too much, but the Hawaiians believed you needed to stick with what your gut feeling was. And part of that being centered was also thinking through your feet. So being a roofer, you're always thinking through your feet.
Yeah.
But he's a surfer too. But you don't. If you're thinking through your head too much, then you tend to ignore. Like oftentimes you'll have a block that's interfering with the energy, the universal energy that can come down through. Like the yoga teaches you, the alignment, and that. Oftentimes, if you have too much of a, like when you're young, you don't get the nurturing that you need. Sometimes you put a mask on. I'm not getting any love. My younger brother and my sister, they're getting all the love. So you retreat inside this shell. And then when you get to be a teenager, you want to break out. Only the shell's still there. So, but being in a community where people are telling you it's okay. There'll be more waves. The fish, they just come out night diving with us. There's plenty of fish. Just got to be careful of, what
The
you
big
can't,
fish.
what you can't see out there. It's always,
100%.
But being the son of of a fisherman. And my dad was a very good sailor. He could row a dory standing up, but he got to be such a seaman that he had his own boat when he was working for the Fish and Wildlife, and he ended up getting his master's papers, unlimited master's papers, where he could pilot any ship in the ocean. So, very accomplished guy. And Mom was the same way. Sometimes I look up at the stars, and there's like 2 stars, and I went, okay, who should I be listening to tonight? Twinkle, twinkle, twinkle. Don't listen to her. Don't listen to him. But yeah,
John was Dad's name?
John. Yeah.
John and Audrey, thank you very much for giving us this wonderful child and us getting to share his life and get to watch it, mate.
Thank you, Barton. And in the Scottish language,
Yep.
because my real name is John.
Oh,
John
like
Sutherland.
Dad's?
Like Dad's,
Yeah.
only just a different middle name. But in the Scottish tradition, Junior, John Junior, boy, is Jock. Jock is the diminutive form of John.
that's where we got it from. You got it from.
Little Jock,
Yeah.
Okay, it used to be Bo, but now it's Jock. But it's a good name, but
Little Jock with a big heart, mate. That's what I would say, with a massive heart.
yeah, we'll see how that turns out in a couple of years,
Yeah, it'll turn out great, mate, because the
Thank you,
legacy's beautiful, mate, and your kids are going to carry it on, and we love Gav. He's ripping.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come join me in the studio.
It's my pleasure.
And a big thank you to you out there, Uncle Jock Sutherland. He might not like it, but I'm calling him Uncle because I love him like an uncle, mate.
That's all right.
I've been watching for a long time.
Son, you've done
Thank you,
fine.
mate.
You've done
Thank
a good
you,
job.
mate. Thank you, people, for watching. We'll see you next episode. Massive thank you to A New Earth Project and their S3 surfboard shipping system. We'll see you next time. Thank you.